Daniel here for Tabletop for One. Please join me at the table as I play through Glass Road. And I thank you for joining me for this tutorial and solo playthrough of Glass Road. Glass Road is an Uwe Rosenberg game where you're trying to build out your land and build out the ability to make brick and glass. This game is a resource management game involving a deck of cards here, which will be your card-driven gameplay, and I'll explain that in just a moment, but let's go ahead and go into setup. And so I set up the boards like this, but the recommended is to set this dial tile like this and point the arrow straight up and set the tokens on it. But for ease of making everything fit in the picture here, I've got it set up like this. And then with the arrows pointing this way, you'll place all the tokens in the printed spots on the board. And then on your player board here, you're going to populate the board based on the printed icons on your board. So you place forests in these spots here, pits in these spots, ponds, and groves in these spots here. And then you'll populate the market board here with 4 tiles of each different type. And then you'll take this tile here and set it somewhere that's visible for you. I'm going to place it right here. This tells you what rounds you're in and how many cards you're going to use per round. And then you take your deck of 15 cards and you're ready to start the game. Now in Glass Road, you're going to be removing forests or building pits or doing all sorts of things to gather resources in order to build these buildings and sites on your board, and with the end goal of having 30 or more points for a remarkable score. And so first let's talk about this resource dial here. As you gain resources, you'll move the appropriate token along the board, but what happens is you automatically produce bricks and glass when the brown areas are completely clear. So in this case here, if I had moved up my quartz sand up one space, and so now with both of these areas empty, the brown 3 here and the brown 0 here, you'll move this up automatically. And that'll indicate that you've produced 1 glass. But now that means that your food and your salt have gone down, and then your charcoal, water, and lumber have all gone down. Everything's gone down on this side, but your glass has gone up. The same thing happens on this other board. And so you're trying to produce this glass and bricks in order to build many of the really powerful buildings. And so you'll be managing these resources. Now you'll notice that there are charcoal and food on both. So when you gain the charcoal or food, you get to choose which side or which dial you want to gain it on. You can't split it between the two. And so now let's talk about the buildings here. There are 3 different kinds of buildings. You have the production buildings at the top. They give you actions you can do, free actions, to exchange resources most of the time. Or in this case here, this one, the joinery, it says that you can spend 1 forest from your board and 1 lumber to gain 4 food. On the top right corner of each of these tiles, you'll see a victory point total. So this one's worth 2 points. This one's worth 3. Some of these are worth an undefined amount until the end of the game. And so it'll tell you at the bottom here what it takes to gain the points for that tile. So this one here, the stockade, it says that if all spaces on the landscape board are occupied, you'll gain 4 points. Or this one here says 1 per bonus building. That's the buildings at the bottom here. This one here says 1 per contiguous pit. So if you have pits in a trail on your main player board, you'll get 1 point each. And then the middle ones here are instant bonuses. So this one here, when you build it, you gain 7 lumber. And so for this one here, when you place it, if it's adjacent to a pond, you'll remove the pond and gain 4 water. If it's adjacent to a pit, you'll remove it and gain 4 salt. And then if it's adjacent to a grove, you'll remove it and gain 4 lumber. So there are a lot of different tiles and they all do different things. On the left side here, you'll notice the cost for each of those tiles. So when you use a build action, you'll be spending. So this one here requires 2 wood and 2 glass. This one here requires 1 clay and 2 bricks, and so on. There are a few tiles that don't cost anything as well, but they sometimes cost you negative points at the end. And so the vast majority of points come from these buildings here. Now your player board comes with 3 buildings already that grants you endgame bonus points. This one gives you 1 point per glass, This one gives you half a point per salt, and the last one gives you 1 point per brick. There are a few tiles in the game that allow you to upgrade these to something else, and I'll point those out if we see them. And so let's talk about how you do actions in this game. You're going to be playing cards. Most of the cards you're going to play, you're going to get to choose one of the two actions on the card. This card here requires that you remove a forest from your board, and then you'll gain 2 wood. Now, if you're able to do both actions, you'll gain both of them. This one here is pretty straightforward. It lets you get rid of a forest and gain 2 charcoal or 2 food. This one here has you paying 1 water to gain 1 charcoal per card in your hand, or gaining 2 wood. 1 water to gain 2 clay. Pay nothing to gain a pond, or 1 salt per pond, or 1 water per pond. This one is one of the build actions here, so this one has you pay 1 food to build 1 tile. Of course, you had to pay the requirements of the tile to build it. Now, if this was one of the cards that you get to use 2 actions on, then you only had to pay this cost once, and then you'll be able to build twice if you like. This one here lets you gain 1 good of any type. It tells you here the solo game, you just gain 1 good, or you can build. This one's pay 1 food to gain 2 water and 1 lumber, or 2 water and 1 salt. 1 lumber to gain 3 charcoal. 1 charcoal to gain 2 food, or 1 food per pond. This one here lets you add 1 of each building from the building stack to a little private market that you can build from. In the solo game, this will allow you to see more tiles if you're not finding tiles that fit with your strategy. Or the other option is gain 1 clay and 1 wood. This one here lets you gain 1 grove and 1 wood, or 1 food per grove, or 1 lumber per grove. Pay 1 forest to gain 1 wood, or build a building. This one lets you gain a pond, pit, or grove, or build a building. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to start at round 1 here, and it says you get to choose 3 cards to play. Now, you only get to play 2 of them, so you got to keep that in mind. And the first thing you want to do is you want to look at the building tiles here and kind of develop a strategy. So a lot of these tiles have 2 points worth at the end of the game. This one's got 3. Some of these will score pretty well. I don't think I can get all spaces of the landscape occupied unless I'm really careful with removing forests. But it may be worth it. It only costs 1 brick. And yeah, that one might be worth it. This one is 1 per bonus building, but it takes 6 lumber to build and 1 glass. I don't know if it's worth that. This is one of those upgrade tiles that I was talking about, where it replaces one of your buildings that's printed on your board. So this one replaces the Forest Glassworks or the Brotherhood of the Masons, and it's worth a straight up 3 points. This is probably one I'll build towards the end of the game, because if I replace the Brotherhood of Masons or the Forest Glassworks, I won't get points per that resource, but if I'm low on that resource at the end of the game, then it may be worth building that tile. I definitely want to get a couple of these production buildings in, maybe this one here, the Swamp Hut and the Forest Hut. That might be worth it. Let's see how this plays out. So I definitely want to get some resources going. I'm going to choose the clay worker here because I have plenty of water to spend, and I do need some clay. Then maybe this one to remove a forest so I can get some charcoal or some food. And then probably the pit worker here. Alright, so now that I have 3 cards, what's going to happen is you're going to shuffle these cards up. And so when playing cards from your hand, you're going to be drawing cards randomly. All the cards you draw randomly, you only get 1 action on. But when you get down to 2 cards left, you'll actually flip over the 2 cards, choose one of the 2 cards to use, and you'll get both actions on that card. So starting off, we have the clay worker. And so it has me spending 1 water, so we just move the water down 1, and then I'll gain 2 clay. I can choose top or bottom action, but they're both the same, so we'll move the 2 clay up. And so now that I only have 2 cards left, we want to choose which of these 2 to use. We're going to flip these over, and I can either remove a forest and gain both of these resources, or I can use this one here. And I like the pit worker, so I'll go ahead and use this one. Remember, I'm getting both actions here. So I'll gain a pit to the board, and I can place it anywhere. And I think I'll just go ahead and place it in this spot here. And then I'll gain a clay from that top action there. And then at the bottom action here, I get to choose, do I want 1 salt per pit or do I want 1 clay per pit? Well, I have plenty of clay right now. I'm at 4 clay, but I have no salt. So let's go ahead and move this up. We got 1, 2, 3, because I have 1, 2, 3 pits. And at this point, this dial is now going to move up because both areas, the 0 and the 3 here, are empty. So we get to move it up, and now I have 1 glass. And so now this round is done. I don't get to use the third card, or the last card. And so these cards are going to get set aside. You won't be able to use these next round, but they'll get added back into your deck at the beginning of the next round. And so we'll set these aside. Now they also serve as a reminder for what round you're on. So you'll set these aside visible, kind of fanned out. And so you'll see that last round I did 3. So next round, I'm round 2 doing 4 cards. And it's just a nice little reminder. Now at the end of the round, if you had built any buildings, you're going to go ahead and refill those. You don't remove any buildings between rounds. Nothing gets cycled like that. So you just add them back to the board. All right, so I'm really eyeing the Oktoberfest tile here because it's going to let me remove 4 tiles here and gain a ton of stuff. But right now I need 2 glass and I only have 1. So that means I need to move this food up a little bit. So I'm going to look for a card that's going to grant me some food. And let's see. So I think we'll add the Forest Manager. It gives me the option of food or lumber. But not knowing if it's going to come out early on, I probably want to have a backup plan for food. And so we'll go with the Supplier. The Supplier gives me 1 resource or the ability to build. And either of those things will be good for me. But since I'm low on charcoal, I want to have the option of getting some more charcoal. And then I'll go ahead and add the cultivator to the board just in case I need to build later in the round. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and shuffle these up. And the first card is the Supplier. So I'm definitely going to take the 1 food. I'm not going to chance it. We're going to go 1 food here. And then that'll move the dial up. And now I have 2 glass. And I also have 2 wood, which I need for that building as well. And the next card that gets randomly drawn is this one here. It's the cultivator. Well, now that's going to let me build the building. That's perfect. So we're going to build this building here, the Oktoberfest. It's going to cost 2 wood and 2 glass. So the 2 and 2. Wow, I have 0. So many resources at 0 right here. But we'll go ahead and add this in right here. And so now it lets me remove the adjacent tiles and gain resources based off of what I removed. So the water here is going to gain me 4 water. And then the grove here is going to gain me 4 wood. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the pit here will gain me 4 salt. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I do have the option of removing this one as well for another 4 salt. But that'll only put me to 7 because there's a max of 7 resources. So I'll only gain 2 off that action. I'm not sure it's worth it. But you know what? Let's go ahead and do that. All right, I accomplished a lot. I spent a lot of resources, but I got a bunch up there, and this building's worth 3 points too. So that's a really good building there. And so now we're going to choose between these 2 here. Do I want charcoal or do I want the grove action? Well, I only have 1 grove left, so it's not going to really benefit me. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the charcoal. And so I'll get to use both actions. I'll spend only 1 lumber. And then I get to get 3 charcoal. So I can do this dial here. We'll go 1, 2, 3. And then I could add 3 more for the second action to this one. Or I can go with this one. See, these are 2 separate actions. So you're not splitting it if you go with 2 different dials in this case. So I think I'll go ahead and go 1, 2, 3 with this one. And what that allows me is to move this up. And now I have 2 bricks here. And so that's going to be useful later. And so we'll take the 3 cards from the last round and add them back to my deck. And then these 4 cards from this round are going to get set aside. And now since I bought 1 building, that one will get replaced right now. And we have the boathouse, which gives, when you build it, 1 charcoal per pond on 1 production wheel. Alright, so I'm not sure what my strategy is at this point. I think I definitely want to go for this Christmas market tile here. Because it also counts towards your basic buildings. So I think that'll be worth it. But it's going to take 6 wood and 1 glass. I don't have any glass right now, and 6 wood's going to be difficult to obtain unless I go for the carpenter's workshop. And since I have 2 of the bricks right now and enough clay, that might be worth it, but I don't want to waste all my wood right now. I'm at 3 wood, and if I gain 7 wood right now, it will only be gaining a 4. So I may want to look at getting this charcoal kiln first. That way I can burn off any excess wood for charcoal before I build that building. And so that's going to need some clay then, so I'll bring out the clay worker again. And then I'll go for the fish farmer to gain some more food. And then perhaps to build the building, I'll use the carpenter. I think I'll go ahead and add the feudal lord. I might choose to get some buildings for a private offer, or the resources will help either way. And last, I think I'll do the pond builder. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet, which will become relevant in a few minutes here, is that there are 2 free actions you can do at any time. One of them is using your production buildings to convert resources. So once I build this charcoal kiln, I can go ahead and use that ahead of time or in the moment to make sure I spend all the wood that I need to before I build the carpenter's workshop. The other action that you can do is you can remove pits, groves, and ponds to make space for building a building at any time, or for placing other ponds or pits or whatever. So if I wanted to, let's say, place this pond right here, I could remove this. You cannot, however, remove forests freely. You have to use those from the cards or other actions like the joinery here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and shuffle these up. And so the first card is the pond builder. I was kind of hoping to get this later in the round, but I think I'll just go ahead and place it right here. And the next card is the carpenter, so I get to remove 1 forest. I think I'll remove this one here. And then I get to build or gain 1 lumber. I really wanted this build option later, but let's see. What if I go ahead and spend 2 clay and I build the swamp hut here? And that'll let me get rid of some of my ponds if I need to and gain charcoal for it. And the next one is the feudal lord. You know, I don't want the buildings right now, so I'm going to go ahead and gain the resources. That's going to be 1 lumber and 1 clay. And now we have the choice between the fish farmer and the clay worker. I really want the clay, I think, because I want to be able to build that charcoal kiln next round. So I think I'll go ahead and go with that, even though I'm out of food on both those dials. But even if I gain food right now, it's just going to have the dial move further. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and go with the clay worker. And so I'll spend 1 water for that. And then I'll end up gaining a total of 4 clay. So that's going to put me at 5 clay. All right, so I'll set these aside, and we're going to go ahead and draw a new building here. And so we're in round 4. We're going to be doing 6 actions this round. So I'm going to pick the cultivator for either of those options. This one as well, just in case I need to build a building. We'll go with the slash and burn farmer, the pit worker, the forest manager, and the fuel collector. Well, a lot of actions to choose from. We'll see how it plays out here. And so the first card is the slash and burn farmer. So we're going to remove 1. I don't think it really matters where. We'll just remove that one. And then I'll gain 2 charcoal or 2 food. And I'll go ahead and gain the 2 food here. But that, of course, is going to move this up twice because now I have 2 glass. And I'm out of food again. And the next card is the supplier. All right. I think it's time we build again. So let's go ahead and build the charcoal kiln. It's going to cost 1, 2, 3 clay. And we'll place this out there. I don't think it matters where. And now I have that option of making charcoal out of wood. And the next one is the cultivator. All right, let's see if we can build another building. So at this point, I have enough clay and brick to build the carpenter's workshop like I wanted to, but I have some wood here. So let's go ahead and convert the wood into charcoal. So 1 wood, and then I'll gain 2 charcoal. I think maybe I'll gain it on this side. And then we'll go ahead and spend the other wood and gain 2 more charcoal. Once again, I think I'll do it on this side. If I need to gain charcoal later, I can do it with the pond and push it on this side. But I think I just want to build it on one side now, and we'll see if that works. And so now that I've made room for that 7 wood I'm about to gain, we'll go ahead and spend the 1 clay and 2 bricks, and we'll gain that to the board. And then we'll gain 7 wood. And here's the next card. I could spend 1 water for 2 wood or 1 charcoal per card in my hand. And I have 2 cards in my hand. Now, at this point, I don't even want to use this card, and you're allowed to just forego it. You don't have to spend the resource. You can just, it still counts as the played card, but you don't have to do any of the actions. And so I'm going to go ahead and skip that action because I want to keep the water that I have and move on. And so these are my last 2 cards, and I just kind of have to decide which resource I want to produce. I think I'm going to go with food. I get both options, so we'll go ahead and place this down. And before I do this action, I'm going to spend 1 wood to gain 2 charcoal. So we'll push this one back up here, because now I'm going to gain this grove here and 1 wood, so the wood goes back up to 7. And then I'll gain 1 food per grove, and there's 2, so I'll gain 2 food. And since I have 2 glass here and no bricks, I think I'll put it on this side, and that'll gain me 1 brick. Because I'm going to need 1 brick for the stockade. Alright, so it's the end of the round here. We'll get rid of these cards. We're going to add buildings back to the board here. Just what I need, another building that gives a ton of wood. Oh, check that out, the inn. Spending charcoal to gain food, it's worth 3 points. 2 wood, 1 glass, 1 clay, and I have all that, and I can build that. I definitely want to go for that tile. Alright, so we're in round 5. I'm going to gain 3 cards. This is going to be tough. I definitely want the builder. I hope to do 2 buildings at the same time. That would be great. So I'll go with this one here. And maybe the pawn builder. I'll go ahead and shuffle these up. And the first one is the carpenter. Alright, I'll get rid of this forest here. And I think we'll go ahead and build it in. So it's 1 glass, 1 brick, 2 wood. And that'll get the inn on the board. And so now I got to choose between these 2 cards. That is a really tough choice right now. I do have the food to activate this card, but can I build 2 buildings? I could build the sand island for sure. I've been calling this salt and not sand. I don't know why. I think I don't want to miss the opportunity to build. So I'll go ahead and do the builder, spending 1 food, and then 1 water for the sand island here. And that's going to gain me 2 sand per adjacent pond. Now, diagonal is not adjacent, so I just get 2 sand for this one, which is fine. I'm maxed out on sand now. Alright, I'll get rid of these cards, and we place out a new building here. So it's round 6, I have 4 cards. We have to really be careful now trying to fill this up. I want to build the stockade, I want to build the Christmas market, and I want to build this rebuild here. I think that's the best bet for me. So I'm definitely need a brick. I have the glass I need for this one. I need some more wood. Yeah, this is gonna be tough. Let's see if we can work it out. So I'm gonna place both the supplier and cultivator out, and the water carrier, and perhaps the forest manager. Maybe that's the best bet. We'll go ahead and give this a shot. I'll shuffle these up. And so we have the supplier here, and I think I'll go ahead and get 1 clay, because it lets you choose 1 of any resource, except of course glass or brick. And the next card is the forest manager. Let's go ahead and add a forest to the board. This will help make the board full again. And then I'll gain 1 wood. That puts me up to 6. And then I have the choice between these 2. I think it's going to be obvious for me. I'm going to go with the cultivator here. It lets me place 1 of these tiles on the board. We'll go ahead and place a pond here. And then I get to build. I want to build the stockade first. So I need charcoal and food. So I can spend that pond I just got for 2 charcoal, and we'll move this up. And then I can spend 1 charcoal for 2 food. So I'll spend the 1 charcoal here and gain 2 food over here. And now this dial moves up, and I have the brick I need to build the stockade. And we'll go ahead and place the stockade up here. And so we'll go ahead and take these 4 cards and set them aside, refilling the buildings one last time because we are moving into the last round. Alright, so I need to build at least 1 building. The Christmas market is worth it, I think, because I have the resources for it. So is this hunting lodge. The hunting lodge is 1 wood, and I get 3 points if I still have at least 3 forests. Well, I do have 3 forests, so I could build that one. And also the artistic colony here only costs 1 food. I'll gain 1 glass and 1 point, and of course the glass is worth points at the end. So there's some good buildings here. Now, I'll only get to choose 5 cards, but we'll go ahead and choose the builder first. Oh, I've put myself in quite the quandary here. The only other build card I have is the carpenter. And if I use that, then I have to remove one of those forests. And I don't want to do that. but there's no guarantee I'll get to build twice with the builder here. All right, I'm going to risk it. We're going to do the carpenter, but I'm going to try and set it up so I can still fill the empty spaces that I don't build. So we'll add the pit worker and the pawn builder as well. And then I'll add the feudal lord. Oh, we'll see how this works out. All right, so we have the feudal lord first. I just want the resources from the feudal lord, so we'll gain 1 wood and 1 clay. And then we have the carpenter. I didn't want him to show up, but we'll go ahead and use him. So we'll take off this forest here, and then we'll build. We'll go ahead and build the Christmas building here. 6 wood and 1 glass. And then the next is the pit worker. We're just going to go ahead and add a pit to the board. Again, trying to fill this back up so that the stockade is worth 4 points at the end. And that'll also gain me 1 clay. And so now we're down to, do I do the builder action or the pawn builder action? I think we just go ahead and do the builder action. Oh, I just realized I didn't move this. Now I have 1 brick, which means I'm going to need food. So let's first spend 1 charcoal here to make 2 food. Guess it really doesn't matter which one at the moment. We'll place it on that side. Now I have the 1 food I need to spend on the builder. So I think I'll go ahead and spend the 1 food for the artistic colony. And we'll add that to the board. And that'll gain me 1 glass. And then I'll spend 1 glass and 1 clay to build the guest house here. And I can remove one of these here. So I'll remove this one. And we'll place the guest house here. And then that guest house lets me use one of the production actions on the board here. I don't want to use those, so I will skip that. And at this point, the game is done. So we're going to check out our final score here. And so I'm going to add up the straight points from the buildings. We have 2, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, 13. And then this one here grants 1 point per brick. I have 1 brick, so that's 14. This is 1 per bonus building. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 19 points. Plus the 4 here, and that's going to be 23 points. And then a half a point per sand. And that's going to be, I have 7 of them here. You can see the token down here. And that's going to be 3.5 points. So that puts me at 26.5 points. And so there you have it. That was the tutorial and solo playthrough of Glass Road. Please ask me any questions in the comments below and also point out any rules errors I may have made. Please also like and subscribe to this channel if you like the content you see here, and I thank you very much for watching Tabletop for One. Have a great night.